Welcome back to a brand new episode of the 60-second car, minute 41. My name is Dan, joined as always by the co-host with the most boast, Mr. Daniel.
Supreme me. That's a reference to something I think is going to be off air, but whatever, go.
It's diesel time.
60-second car.
Now that has to be bonus content, doesn't it?
Yeah, it does. Welcome back to the 60-second car, minute 41. I'm still laughing from before the break. Family, yeah.
Family.
Because Supreme Me makes me think like a couple things. Either you're in a giant, luxurious kingly robe, and you're just, I'm Supreme Me. Or you're a pizza.
Those are the two lanes. You're in one of these lanes.
That's where my brain goes, okay?
You're the fucking king lion from whatever Disney movie that is.
Yeah.
Or you're a pizza pie.
Exactly. Pizza pie. I mean, I'm cool with either. Whatever you want to be. You want to be a big lion? An animated lion? What is that from? I don't remember. It's definitely from
Peter Pan. No, can't be. Peter
no. Robin Hood, right? Is that Robin Hood?
Yeah, that makes sense. Yes.
Yeah. With the fox Robin Hood and the fox, Miriam.
Yes.
Whatever.
Close
her name.
enough.
Yeah. Marion. Yeah, whatever.
Very.
They made a game. They made a PvP action role playing video game of the Hood boys. I don't know, they call it Hood or something like that. And you had Robin Hood, who's obviously like this ranger with these, it was all very dark and like serious, but ranger with the bow and arrow and had like smoke bombs and stuff like that. And then you had Maid Marian, I think it's her name, who was like this shadow assassin. And she had two blades and she can go stealth and she can come up and like backstab you and stuff like that. Then you had Friar Tuck, who was like this, it seemed like one of the religious zealots from Diablo who had a big flail and like weird magic smoke and he'd smash the heck out of you. And then you had Little John, who is this, looks like Hafthor Bjornsson, the mountain from Game of Thrones, and he has this big ol' axe and he would just slam the ground and everybody would explode. And I was like, this is throwing my whole like understanding of fairy tale and mythology into weird whack, because it was also just a crazy fast-paced action game.
I feel like my brain is doing this thing whenever someone tries to tell me the storyline of Kingdom Hearts, where I'm just like,
I'm
what?
sorry. I'm sorry.
How on earth is that involving all these Disney characters? Who signed off on this?
There are so many memes about that exact thing, because I'll get Katie on to explain it one of these days, and maybe she doesn't even know the full thing, but she's tried so many times to explain to me what happens in those games. And me as a story game guy, I don't understand. No idea.
Katie plays them well, and I don't know. I got her one for some birthday or something, and I just like, here, enjoy. Bye. I have to don't talk to me about it.
Yeah, exactly. Because there's like clones of a bunch of different people. Who are these clones? Are they exact clones? No, they're actually like hybrid clones. I'm like, what are you talking about? The irony is we're kind of talking trash about Kingdom Hearts when we're talking about the Fast Saga, which sort of has a little bit of a convoluted.
No. I wasn't talking trash about it. It's just one of those things where like it just won't stick in my brain. And when people tell me about it, like I could do the same thing about. Well, I couldn't do the same thing because honestly, I don't fully get it either. About like Tears of the Kingdom.
Sure.
Everyone's sad. There's like spirits that aren't the ones from the last game, but they kind of are. Also, you're followed around by these weird ghosts, but. There's a hell, kind of. There's like islands in the sky. I don't know why they won't fall. And Katie's just like, you say you don't like sword and sorcery stuff, but you've put how many hours into Zelda? And I'm like, hold on, I need to attach this fish to my sword and then go battle this goblin.
Do you have you by any chance seen all the contraptions that have been made in that game?
All right, we talk a lot about our algorithms in Instagram.
Uh,
My YouTube is heavy metal videos and crazy shit people do in Tears of the Kingdom,
yeah.
and I watch all of them. I watch these like deranged torture devices where people
Yep.
like put boxes around
Mhm.
whatever the bokoblins, and then just
Yeah,
like
yeah.
fill it with fire. And I'm like, why are these people doing this?
Mm.
Also, next video, please. Awesome.
Give me more. Yeah, I've seen giant bomber planes that have like lock-on seeking lasers and fired torpedoes and stuff like that, and they just mow down an entire village of these guys. And like they're just the Hindenburg or something. I don't know. Did the Hindenburg, was that a warship? I don't think so.
That was a big blimp that popped and caught on fire.
Yeah.
That's definitely downplaying all of the thing, oh, the humanity, etc. But
Yeah.
I saw one where someone just made like a glowing green, because that's basically what they all look like, version
Mhm.
of the Dark Knight Batmobile. And I was just like, cool. Why? Of all the
Yep.
things to do.
Yep. I'm pretty sure I've seen TIE fighters and X-Wings too.
Okay, that's not me playing the game. I do what I need to get through. I put some stuff together. That's kind of funny, but I'm not
Yeah.
going out and like building fucking Titanic or
I
whatever.
think you've explained you like climbing to the top of a mountain being like, oh, that's cool.
I want to go to the top and I want to jump off with my parasail and see how far
Yeah.
I can go.
That's fair. But
I'm a
imagine
simple man.
if you had a B-2 bomber to fly off that mountain with.
Well, they have like little planes that you can fly on for a while, but they only fly for so long before they just disappear. And I don't know why. I just want to fly around, but they won't let me.
Yeah. I've seen that. I've seen a lot of the memes of people, you know, the whole like, oh, I bet he's cheating on me, and then it cuts to something else. Well, it's usually, I bet he's cheating on me, and then cuts to this crazy contraption that somebody's made in Tears of the Kingdom that they spent probably 100 hours on.
Yeah, I both worry about and envy those people that have that kind of imagination in that game. But also, I feel like
Yeah.
I'm just like not good at it.
Yeah.
Because like it's a game I love. We'll play it after we're done recording. I haven't beat it yet. I probably won't for a while. I'm just having a good time going to the top of new mountains.
Yeah. I'm with you on that. Scared for those people because like given a proper education and a budget, who knows what kind of mass destruction they would come up with.
You know who's one of these guys? I bet our
Who?
boy Jesse.
Probably.
I think if you put Jesse in Tears of the Kingdom, he'd have the craziest contraptions you could ever have.
Oh yeah, probably. I mean, he does. You know, they calm him down, as we'll hear in this episode. The engines and contraptions they make him calm, which
he is very calmed by killing goblins.
You know, like there is this fine. Not to go back to this, but we're gonna go back to this for a second, because there's this episode's gonna be probably kind of quick, until I fill it with garbage right now. There is this whole thing with like not really understanding what it is that we want to do with our time as we get like distracted all the time. Like, okay, I'm jumping ahead, I think, in my head. Bring it back.
Are we ahead or are we back?
We're back, and now I forgot what the heck I'm talking about because now I'm relating everything that's going on in my head to I am Jesse in a way.
Do I need to lead us back into this? You know who'd be really good at these contraptions in Tears of the Kingdom? Our boy Jesse.
Yeah, our boy Jesse. Anyway, we haven't learned exactly what's going on yet, but the first frame we have into minute 41 is these plans for this Supra. That is all lined out. It's not super high res, but it is detailed. And I guess my question is, if it's in CAD, he probably drew this all himself, right?
When did he do this? Like, how long is this after they brought over the shit car that they didn't know about?
I don't understand the timeline in this. Yeah. I don't understand. I don't think I will understand. I don't even think it makes sense. So why even try to understand?
Maybe I don't know. Been waiting for a Supra this whole time.
That's honestly not far-fetched.
Maybe he's got one of these for every car. Like every car that he wants to soup up. Like he's got a fucking like Honda Civic in here that he's stoked about. I don't know what cars are around in 2001. I'm just gonna start. Yeah. He's just ready for him. So like he's like, oh cool, Supra. Hold on, I got to get that disc because it's already labeled.
It's very possible that he has that, but it's also very possible that, like, as we talk about at the beginning of the movie, you can find anything on the internet. Maybe he downloaded it. Who knows?
Yeah, maybe.
Maybe he's got some hookups on some CAD websites where he's got all this stuff. I mean, it's got to be somewhere, right? Because I feel like they originally designed the cars probably in some type of CAD program.
Probably.
I don't know, but he could have drawn this himself. Who knows? I know that. So there is a possibility that it is implied he drew this all himself because, or Brian is just easily impressed. But Brian is incredibly impressed by everything that he's watching right now.
Like, I don't have very many notes for this minute, but like this minute really makes Brian get Jesse and like his role in all this, and like he sees him as like it humanizes Jesse for him. He like sees so much potential in him, and he's like almost worries about him in a weird way because he's so smart.
Yeah,
but at like seemingly this one thing.
It's one of those things where I mean that's got to be the whole reason for this scene, right?
Absolutely,
to humanize him to the point where we get to see this. Brian is going local, I guess. What do they call it? Do they call like whatever the sergeant says to him? He's like, "Are you going local on me?" Something like that, or
maybe
I don't know, whatever it might be. But yeah, he's. I mean, for lack of a better term, he's falling in love with this group, and we already knew he was already into it, right? But I think until this point, we kind of figured he was into it because that's just what he wanted. He wanted to be in the car scene. But now he wants to be part of this family, not just the car scene. And this is definitely that moment because, I mean, there's not really many other moments they can do unless they really made something even bigger with Jesse, which they kind of do later, but, you know, not really in the same way. There's more of the wrap up to his story. But yeah, they talk about
makes the other scene you're referring to matter.
Exactly. Yes.
Because if they didn't have this scene, the scene later in the movie,
it wouldn't make sense.
Wouldn't care.
Yeah. Yeah, I agree. It would very much be, I would think, be insulting to his character if they played that scene but not this one.
Yeah.
So yeah, so Jesse's running through all this stuff and he's explaining everything he sees, and he's very articulate, right? And for the most part, we kind of, especially with how Dom talks about him, we kind of know he's pretty articulate when it comes to cars, and he knows, we obviously know he knows a lot of stuff about what he's talking about, but he kind of has that, I think, especially in 2001, has that air of like, pardon me for saying this. This is probably the term that was used and why and probably what was described as his character when it was said, but as a spaz, right? He has that kind of energy, and that's what was probably described when they were describing his character. And so they had to bring away, the reason I like this scene a lot is because this happens to be, I mean, I heard this word a lot, right? I'm not a fan of this word. I didn't use it, and it wasn't really used on me, so I wasn't like traumatized by it, but I heard a lot of people call kids just like this spazzes, right? And as somebody who didn't really think about it too much until I was well into my adulthood, I have not severe, but I have very much an attention problem. And you see that in this podcast quite a bit, and you saw that very much in this episode just seconds ago, where things will just leave my brain. Either because I got distracted by something, or I didn't even notice I got distracted by something. And there's a moment in this scene where that's a funny one. So this is when Brian's about to say you should go to MIT or something. And then this moment right here, he's trying to think about what ADD is, what the word for ADD is. And if he's anything like me, he knows absolutely what the word is. But because of distractions in my brain, just because distractions in his brain, I can't pull that word out of it all the time. It happens constantly in my life. I know I've said this word a billion times. I've talked about this topic a billion times, but recalling it in the moment is so hard sometimes.
What I think is kind of interesting about the scene, and it puts like a spotlight on what else there is to ADD.
Yeah.
Because ADD is, you're easily distracted. There's something out the window. It's all the punchline jokes, but like, there's also him being so hyper focused on this other thing and it becoming
Mhm.
like almost like a superpower.
Yeah, it
So,
seems that way, right?
so for him specifically, but everyone's probably got that thing, but he's so good at this, but because of his ADD, he can't go to MIT like Brian suggests.
Mhm.
And, you know, it's like, it's almost like kind of cool.
It's one of, I mean, this is what makes nerds, right?
Yeah.
This is what makes us all pretty nerdy. Is the reason I didn't do very good in school. But I, in certain classes and certain things I did that were considered very difficult to people, I had zero problems with them. And I think there's a lot of, and I think a lot of people that go through like therapy and are taught coping mechanisms for things, with a lot of us who've kind of lived with these things for a long time, we've kind of developed those coping mechanisms on our own. And most of the time it's finding something that interests us. And that is the cope, right? I'm sure you feel this way with music all the time. If like things are overwhelming or distracting or whatever, you could probably go listen to something that really interests you and be like, I listened to every single note that was played there and I focused on every single bit of it.
Mm-hmm.
And it's the same thing when it comes to certain video games for me, or when it comes to story elements of a grandiose story. I can talk about every, like when we talking about Lord of the Rings, right? I can talk about almost every little thing about it. But I failed history about 3 times, two different history classes, but I failed 3 times because I had no interest in it. It's not because I got lazy and didn't listen in class. I would try so hard to listen, and then my brain would just go, "What?" And then I'd miss 10 minutes of what was just said. And I mean, I don't know what those 10 minutes are, and I'm not gonna. And also being a shy kid, especially in like high school and college, and be like, "Oh, can you repeat that? I don't know what you just said." It's not gonna happen. And that's why I relate to at least this scene a lot. I'm not as smart as Jesse when it comes to anything as he is to cars, but I think I relate to this quite a bit. This is big.
I get that.
Yeah, and I think exactly with what you're talking about, this is where not only is maybe the film talking to the audience and probably people, especially in 2001 when this was not something people talked about, right? And if people talked about ADD, because like the reason he says it, right? The reason Brian knows it off the top of his head is because it is being talked about, but in a super negative light. And as we see in the next like couple of seconds, he's like annoyed that he just heard that, and he's like, "Yep, that shit right there."
Mm-hmm.
And because in 2001, people were like, "Oh, it's this thing that kids are having these days, and you just pump them full of drugs and be done with it. There's nothing else we can do." And so we just had this horrible negative light over something like this. In fact, it was so much like that to where I never even got tested to even see if I was to be diagnosed, because it wasn't severe enough to hold me back a grade, right? But it wasn't like accepted enough to even test to see if it's like vaguely there, right? So it was right in the middle of it all, and it just became this, well, I guess you're just not going to be good in school. You're not a good test taker. You're just not going to get good grades because you have trouble and things. But that was the end of it. That was the end of the conversation. So we get this reaction that is pretty much every kid or parent going through this and dealing with the same thing. So it's a very powerful scene. I don't know. There's not really much else to say.
Yeah, like I don't have a lot of notes here. I agree that it's kind of intense humanization, if that's a word,
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
of Jesse for Brian and for the audience. And yeah, because otherwise he's just this kind of weird guy in the background. But he's got a purpose in this family, in this team, and turns out he's super important, and he's kind of the man.
Because you can very easily make Jesse that just the tech in any like crime drama or whatever, the guy who can hack anything, right? And that's all he is.
What I'm thankful for in this scene and his character, if this was a different movie with a different vibe, they could have made him and this a punchline.
Yeah.
And they could have never had this scene. He could have just been in the background being distracted. They could have had basically like the negative thing that they're kind of talking about here. they could have made that his whole character and gotten away with it in 2001. And
Mm-hmm.
he's not in any other movie, so they could have just not talked about it again. But instead, they kind of did something bold.
Especially for like what kind of reputation this franchise has now of like, oh, it's just silly superpower stuff and family, and it's just full of memes. But it's like, as much as people want to talk about that, I think a lot of people don't want to admit that like sometimes it's emotional, right? Not sometimes, a lot of the time it's emotional and talking about not always like real topics and stuff like that, but the theme of what Vin Diesel wants, which is to stick together, is always there. And this kind of is the beginning of that, right? I don't know if I actually probably do know Vin Diesel had nothing to do with the character arc of Jesse.
Right.
But he took that and threw it into the fourth movie and was like, hey, we can start implementing the things that we had in the first movie that was, you know, maybe not geniusly written in, but powerful enough to be able to say, hey, this very easily could be a theme forever. And then that became like his whole personality. I told you about the Late Late Show thing, right?
I think so.
Yeah, and that it is weird, and I think his personality and how he puts off that air kind of puts people off. But I mean, it's based on this essentially, so it's meaningful.
I can't think of another franchise that's this successful that is led by as many non-white people as Fast and Furious. And
Oh yeah,
Jesse's a white guy, but his character, whether or not he's an actor portraying this who actually has ADD or not, is somebody who would be marginalized in a way. Mind you, Vin had nothing to do with this character, like you said.
absolutely
But still,
nothing.
he's somebody who's one of the, down tier stars of this movie who isn't Paul Walker. That's rad.
Mm-hmm. Big time.
So, Fast does good. And it's a dumb movie, but it also has layers. It's an onion. It's an ogre.
Well, this is like, so Sean Jordan, comedian and host of All Fantasy Everything, talks about this all the time. And as much as he talks about cheesy stuff constantly, this is one of the things I very much agree with. People who say things are bad as far as like movies or games or whatever go, if you like it, it's not bad.
Yeah.
Like straight up. And if people want to talk about how the future movies in this franchise are bad, or if you're going to tell me you don't have a good time watching them, then you're saying something because the rest of whatever you're listening to is saying the same thing, and that's purely the reason. If you like it, you like it, and if it's good, or if you like it, then it automatically is good to you.
Yeah, I kind of got in a conversation about this with music with a friend of mine, where I can recognize that music I like has technical flaws as far as certain things go. Basically, like I love the music of Carly Rae Jepsen. I mean that ironically, I think her pop songs
I know that
are
about
fantastic. And I recognize that as far as music goes, she is the Coca-Cola. She's the McDonald's fries. She's like her music. If you peel back the layers, you can find songwriting, etc. You can get really technical about it if you want, but I won't. But like on its surface, it's candy.
Mm-hmm.
Candy's delicious.
Mm-hmm.
Mudvayne or Punchline in new metal community, they have one of the top-notch bassists in all of heavy metal history. And they're prog as fuck.
Mm-hmm.
But also they dress like they are corpses running around slapping a bass, singing songs about nothing.
Yeah.
Organs? Right. I honestly don't know. So like these are those movies.
Yeah.
Like on the surface, I get why people say they're schlock, whatever. But here we are, 2 minutes in.
Yeah.
Peeling back the layers, having a time with it.
Yeah. I bring up the Red Hot Chili Peppers all the time in that conversation. Because I'm like, if you're gonna tell me Flea isn't fucking amazing, and he's in the Red Hot Chili Peppers, which is a band most people don't really like, then like, what does it matter, right? Like, some people like, obviously enough people like Red Hot Chili Peppers, but then you pull Flea out of that, and all of a sudden you love them. Like, make up your mind. What's going on here? I'm very confused by this whole thing. Man, I watched Flea play the trumpet for the solo of Smells Like Teen Spirit back in the day, which was a great time. Great video. I'll have to send it to you.
Please, because I'm in my brain racked how the solo goes. And
So he does that all on the trumpet.
Okay, cool.
It's pretty great.
He's a trumpeteer.
He's at everything a tier.
Of course.
He's also in a Star Wars TV show. He's
in Big Lebowski.
He is in Big Lebowski. He's a main character that does not speak English in The Wild Thornberrys.
I fucking forget he's Donnie.
He's Donnie.
Oh my god.
Donnie Thornberry. He speaks not a lick of English and he has tons of lines. He talks all the time.
That cast is bananas because it's Flea and it's Tim Curry.
Yeah.
What
Tim Curry is the dad. Such a good. Oh, that's so great. I love that so much.
Into it.
That was a good show. I had a good time with that. Because that was like, it was animated Crocodile Hunter. And it was Crocodile Hunter even more for kids. And I love Steve Irwin. And it was like everything I ever wanted from both either going to the Animal Planet watching that or going to Nickelodeon watching that. It was a good time in my childhood.
Maybe you should revisit that.
It'd be very interesting. I know Tim Curry's getting kind of old. But
I was just on like a weird rabbit hole with his whole career and like his health and stuff kind of recently, which is why I was like, why Thornberry's is right here with him. But yeah, he had a stroke a while back and has just been doing the voice acting thing and still being great as ever.
I know you're not. I know we talk about this. You're not a video gamer for the most part,
except for those three things I play all the time.
Except for those three things, you should go through and watch all the. So, have you ever heard of Command and Conquer?
Yes.
The real-time strategy game. Have you seen the cutscenes from the third game? Sorry, not the third game. The third Red Alert version of that game, Command and Conquer Red Alert 3. Tim Curry plays the Russian commander. That is, if you're playing on the Allied side, he's talking to you. He's as both a villain and sometimes he you guys join up to fight a third faction, or he's your main commander. If you play for the Russian side or the Soviet side, he has the most unhinged and hilarious lines that you've ever heard him say, and it's all on a very serious video game. It's a military strategy simulator, and he's just talking about to space and in this crazy Russian, like fake Russian accent, almost not as bad, but almost John Malkovich level Russian accent. And just watch the montage of Tim Curry going through all those. It's so hilarious. He's such a good actor, and he is one of those people is always having fun on set. My God, it's a good watch. You should definitely watch it.
I have a Google up for it so I don't forget. So
perfect. Yeah, it shouldn't be a long one, but it's a good one. But yeah, I mean, that's kind of the whole. It's weird to get serious in this podcast, but like that's kind of the whole theme of this minute is as you said, humanizing someone who very easily could kind of just be in a lot of anime, you can replace him probably with an android, right? That's probably what would happen. He'd be a robot or some sort of like half robot, half human, just tech that knew everything about machines. And as we see, this is it's a human who isn't working at some engineering firm because he has a learning disability and couldn't really get anywhere else with that, because especially in 2001, they didn't have those support systems to help people get through that stuff.
He has instead? Family. That would have been a great way to end the episode, but we're not there. So
that was a good one. That was a good effect. Did you know you were going to hit that effect?
No, I usually randomize the knob. I don't know.
That was a good one. I like that one. Yeah.
I didn't realize it kept echoing after I turned off the effect too. Cool. Good to
know. I mean, it kind of is the end of the episode. Do we have any more to talk about here?
I went through my 4 notes and we went far beyond those. So
yeah, I mean, like we talked about this before recording this episode. You're like, I don't really know what to talk about here. I was like, I got plenty to talk about. Don't you worry.
Cool.
And yeah, we covered it. I mean, essentially, especially in the 2020s, we're sort of in an era of still trying to normalize mental health, and attempt to make it easier to talk about mental health issues. And obviously, as we see back here in 2001, it was extremely acceptable to just accept you have a problem and don't worry about it. Just do whatever you can. And I'm glad that are moving past that, but it's again over 20 years since then. I don't think we've gotten 20 years in progress. So
Nah.
so, this is where we're here. So if you so anybody listening out there, be like Jesse and well, not exactly like Jesse, but be like Jesse and do what you want to do, and know that there are people out there that are absolutely willing to just be your family, whether they're your family or not, because we all right here are
Family.